Hey sweet friends, we are back with a new tutorial video for this Disney World themed set. Today's video is one that I know that a lot of people have been looking forward to, and this video tells you how I made my Mickey face cookie. Character cookies are always difficult. Even if you've made them several times before, there's never a time that I'm just super excited to make a character cookie. But I hope that this tutorial video helps to give you the confidence that you need to be able to knock out your own Mickey cookie. So let's get going on our Mickey cookie. Welcome to Rock City Cookies, where we talk about all things cookies. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video. Thanks for watching. Now, you are more than welcome to use an existing Mickey cutter that you already own, or you can purchase the one in our Etsy shop. But I do want to kind of give a disclaimer here because you can see in this picture that my Mickey cutter didn't match my Mickey graphic. And that's because when we made these Mickey cookie cutters, we actually made them just to be used as a background, not to be used for his face. So I actually didn't have a Mickey face graphic to go with this cookie cutter at the time that we made them. But now we do. Now I have created a graphic that perfectly matches this cookie cutter. But I want to encourage you that if you do not have a Mickey cutter that matches a Mickey face background, then don't be afraid to find a graphic online and make it work for your cookie cutter. And if you don't want to invest in a specialized cookie cutter like a Mickey head that you won't use very often, then you can always use an existing shape that you already have, a plaque, a circle, a hexagon, a square, something that you already own, flood it with a solid background, and then project your image of a Mickey face onto that cookie and just do the Mickey face on top of a plaque that way. And then you don't have to buy a specialized cutter, but you can still have that Mickey face, that classic iconic Mickey face in your cookie set without having to buy a special cutter for it. The Mickey graphic actually fits the cutter now in our Etsy shop. So if you do buy our cutter, you will have that graphic that you can use to go with this cookie. But since I didn't at the time that I made this set last year, I did go ahead and just find a graphic online that I could work for this cutter. And because the ears didn't matter that much, I was just mainly trying to line up the face so that the face was symmetrical and worked well in that shape. Now, the first thing that you are going to want to do when you are doing a character is I do go ahead and think about how I need to layer the work that I'm going to be doing. So the first thing is, what is going to be the very, very back of my cookie? What's going to be the background of my cookie? And when I have a character that has an open mouth, that is going to be the very back of your cookie. So you have to think about doing that first. You will layer your cookie, and by layering it, you're giving it that dimension. You're bringing that character to life. But in the layers themselves, there needs to be a certain order that you do them. Because I need the mouth, the back of the mouth, to be flat, that is the first thing that I'm going to do. And just with a thick icing, you get a paintbrush or a palette knife or some sort of tool, and you just smooth out that icing where it's flat on your cookie. And then I'm going to go ahead and outline all of the areas of his face so that I know where to work with this cookie, but also I don't want to keep projecting the image over and over because I am having to enlarge or shrink down the image over and over to use it on this cookie. I don't want to accidentally not have my image line up because I'm going back and forth to it over and over again. So when I have a character, I typically do whatever background work I need to do first, like the inside of a mouth, and then I go ahead and outline the key features of my character so that I know where all of the other work is going to go, and also so that when I do need to reproject my image onto the cookie, I can line it up exactly. It really helps with the consistency from cookie to cookie so that all of my Mickeys look the same, but it also just really makes sure that I have the details proportionate to my character's face. After I outline his eyes, his smile, where his actual face goes, then I'm able to do the next step, which is most of the time going to be the character's tongue and his eyes. because I kind of want those to be on the same plane. So again, you're thinking about layering that character, how our faces are, how character faces are. So you have the inside of the mouth, and then you have the tongue and the eyes. Those are all going to be the second layer, and then everything else will be built around that, because our tongue isn't in the same space that our face is. Our eyes isn't in the same plane that our nose is. So you definitely want to think about that when you're building your characters. So the next thing I'm going to do is his tongue and his eyes. And this is pretty much standard for every character that I do. With the character's eyes, you can do a couple of different techniques. You can do a white flood, and then with a marker or with some edible paint, you can actually paint on the black part of his eye. But personally, I prefer to do a wet on wet technique when I'm doing characters' eyes. I just get the most consistent look with that. I don't have to worry about marker work later. I can go ahead and just knock that part out, and I feel like it looks the best. But I know a lot of people who prefer to do marker work for the actual eye itself. Either way is fine. It's just what you're the most comfortable doing. And it may take some experimenting to figure out what that is. I did forget to mention underneath his eye, I did use a squiggle of white icing just to kind of stabilize that area, because an eyeball is one place you definitely don't want any cracks or cratering. So I used an extra little bit of thick icing before I did my medium consistency white icing for his eyeballs. And all of that is done right away. Outline, squiggle, and the white icing is all done right away. While my white icing is still wet, then I'm going to go in and I'm going to do the black portion of his eye. And this icing is a medium consistency icing as well. You don't want this to be too thick, or else you have two different textures going on. And sometimes I find that if I use too thick of icing on wet icing, on like a medium consistency icing, you might also get not quite as smooth of a finish as the rest of the eye, which also can make it look weird. So try to keep your two consistencies between the white and the black similar to each other, so that it all smooths out and it's one smooth surface, and that you don't have like the black portion of the eye sticking up higher than the white portion because it's a thicker icing. Next, I did Mickey's tongue, but now I'm going to go ahead and do his skin. And I'm going to tell you that this part I struggled with this set. I don't think I got a great skin tone here. And honestly, skin tone is very difficult for me. It doesn't matter what skin tone it is. Any range of the spectrum, skin tone is just difficult. So humans are humans, and we all have various coloring, and it's just difficult to translate that into such a one-dimensional color on a cookie. So there's not a single time where I've ever had any sort of skin tone to cookie and I'm like, nailed it. So that is a definite flaw in my opinion as far as my skill set goes. And so I need to work on that. But I don't think I did a fantastic job nailing the skin tone of Mickey, but I used an ivory coloring, but it's just not warm enough. There's too much cool tones in it. And so it just didn't translate super well. However, the fact that it's still very easily recognized as Mickey, I'm lucky in that aspect. So I don't think it mattered so much, but it did bother me a lot that this is definitely not quite the correct skin tone for Mickey Mouse. Now, if you saw my Sesame Street tutorial, this is the same technique that I used there. When you're working around a character's face, you really, really, really have to take your time. And you want to do section by section, smooth it out, and then build upon that. And you want to always make sure you're not over flooding or even under flooding an area. I like for my icing to be on the thicker side when it comes to doing a character's face, because I'm able to really pull the icing where I want it to go. I'm able to not overfill an area, and I'm able to take my time and use that scribe tool as basically the most important tool that I have on his face, because I'm able to pull the icing exactly where it needs to go. I'm not covering his eyes too much. You don't lose the definition of his smile that you made with the thick icing. Use a thicker icing, probably even a little bit thicker than you may feel comfortable using as you work. And so I start with the middle of his face, and I kind of worked my way around, and I just pulled the icing where I needed it to go. Now that I have that done, again, it's going under the fan and it's going to dry. I let his eyes and his tongue dry. Then I let his face dry. Now I'm able to work on his ears. Again, you can see this icing is on the thicker side with this black icing. It's once I'm putting it on my cookie, you don't see it spreading out like you do with a normal flood. You see it pretty much stays exactly where I piped it until I move it where it needs to go. So because Mickey's little cheeks come in and his ears and the little, what's that called? A crow's peak in his face. If you overfill your icing, you may lose some of that dimension because it just goes right over the top of it. And so you don't see all of that kind of detail work. So that's another reason why using your scribe is really important. Pull the icing where you want it to go without losing so much of that definition that you really need to make a character look authentic. So here I am taking my time, pulling my black icing to his ears, to his face. And I'm also, by doing so, not worried that I'm going to have icing spill over the edge of my cookie, and really, really trying to nail this character and what he looks like so that your client, which happens to be my children in this set, but so that your client is the happiest that they can be with the character, which more than likely is the whole purpose of this theme. It's what their party is completely centered around, is whatever character that they have hired you to create for them. So take your time and do the best that you can do. If you have one cookie that you want to spend the most time on with the set, it's definitely your characters, which is also, though, why I only do a few characters and I try to make the rest of my designs complement whatever the character is, because characters do just take so much work and they take so much time. So I try to blend in enough characters that my client feels happy that they received the amount of that they're paying for, because my character sets are way more expensive than my regular sets. So I try to do enough characters that my client stays happy, but also not enough that I'm dying. Not so many characters that it takes me days on end to finish a set. So there's a fine line there. There's a fine balance. Now, if a client specifically requests all characters, then there is ways that you can incorporate characters without having to do an entire face over and over again. You can do partial faces. Carlotta Sweets is definitely one of my favorite cookiers that does characters phenomenally. So if you need ideas for how to do characters without having to do an entire face over and over again, go visit her Instagram because it is full of inspiration. She's fantastic. I mean, she's amazing. So she does all sorts of cool little tips and tricks whenever she's doing character sets. So if you need some inspiration, head over there. When a client asks for characters for their cookies, I price that on how many actual characters I'm going to be doing. So if I'm going to be doing a dozen characters and every single cookie has a character on it, well, that can get really expensive if you're talking about doing multiple dozens. But because like with this set, I only did a few characters. I did Mickey and Minnie, of course, but I only did a few of those throughout the set, then that can lower their price point. So if they are willing to do a few characters and then have other easier, simpler designs that go along with the theme that aren't necessarily straight characters, like what I did in this set, then that price point can come down a little bit. And then you can actually price them. Okay, if I'm doing a dozen cookies, then you break it down by designs, which means I can price that out per design on how much I'm going to charge for that set. I had 8 designs in this set, I believe. So 2 of those designs are Mickey and Minnie. And then the other 6 designs are simpler designs that don't take me much time, but I'm still going to look at every single design that I have and figure out, based on the colors, based on how much time it takes me to execute it, how much I charge per cookie. So that's how I break down how much I charge per set. I look at the designs. Don't just give them a standard price because you feel like you have to give them a standard price. Break down your cookies based on per dozen based on the designs that you're doing. More characters, the higher the price. Less characters, the lower the price. So if you have a client that's wanting to lower their price, you take out some of the characters. If you've got a client who wants mostly characters, you raise that price. So I hope that helps. Okay, we finished up our Mickey cookie with his nose, and then I added some pink petal dust because I just was not happy with the coloring on Mickey's face. After everything had dried, I went back with some pink petal dust and I just tried to add, it was shimmery a little bit, and so so I just tried to add some color to his face around the outline of his face and his little cheek area right here next to his smile. It just gave our Mickey character a little bit more depth. And that's it. Our Mickey is done. I hope that was helpful. We still have Minnie Mouse to do in a couple videos, so you'll get to see me decorate her as well. And I really hope that that took away some fear for you. Just really, when you do your characters, break them down step by step. Really focus on those eyes. It's the most important when it comes to the character. And that's it for today's video. Next up is Minnie Mouse's bow, which will go live in a couple of days. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.